Are you doing anyone that you can chat? Like
You
people
can chat, yeah.
live chat.
Mm-hmm. All right, but we'll see if anyone comes or not. But thank you,
Okay.
Sarah. You want to introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, I'm Sarah David. As you may have seen in the poster. So I'm talking about memoir as healing today. I have handouts for you all. I guess if there's anyone virtual, get them handouts somehow. Perhaps via email or something. Those lines. I guess I'll start off talking just about like writing, maybe generally. I've been writing like as long as I can remember. Not memoir, but just remember more recently. And then I've been teaching writing for about 12 years in different capacities, most recently at CBTC. And I've been mostly writing fiction over the years. I just kind of switched to memoir the last 2 years. I have a couple of mystery novels I think are actually in the store somewhere over there.
In the
Like
local
6 or 7
section.
years ago. Yeah. And then I have like short pieces that I published that are more like speculative fiction, like fantasy sort of elements. And then I switched to memoir. So that's what we're looking at today. Yeah. So
Why did you switch?
Ooh, so I'm gonna get into that. First, I guess I'd like to hear from you guys too. Like, what do you, maybe what's your relationship to writing? So, if you, what you like to write, or what you'd like to write, maybe if you had more time, or yeah, that's always important too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess probably I write more of like a journal kind of writing at the moment. So a lot of the words, like tone words, I can see here. I tend to write better when I'm mad or frustrated. Actually, my husband bought me this book that's like keywords, like who in your life makes you mad, and you're not supposed to use names. You're supposed to use descriptions, or like if your job is the issue, you write down things about your job that you like or dislike. In this case, it's dislike. Or if there's a personal conflict with someone, this particular book is pretty good at saying, not again, what can you learn from this? What do you use to grow, rather than I'm mad and I don't want to talk to them ever again. So it's more of that kind of journaling kind of thing. But someday it'll become something else. So.
I primarily write hiking guidebooks, but if I had more time, I'd write fiction.
Well, not quite the writer, but I did learn a technique called palm of the hand memoir writing, which is to pick events through your life, and it should only fit on one page. So you use all the descriptive words, and then so that was probably the last writing I've done. That's a while ago.
I love to read and write. Poetry is my background. I teach writing, teach composition and English as a second language here.
Okay.
And then I sometimes do memoir as a genre with my students.
Oh, awesome.
The composition program.
Yeah, how do you like memoir?
I like it, and the students really they like it too.
Okay,
Most
that's good.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I know. There's always some students. You never know.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. So yeah, Robin, you mentioned a list of tone words they have up at the top. So we're gonna talk about like how memoir can be like healing in different ways, and just writing generally can be healing. In these list of tone words, I want you to think of words that you consider maybe when you're in a difficult time, like you're going through something that's tough, that you need to try to process or heal from. Which of those tone words stand out to you for that time? And which of those tone words stand out to you for how you feel when you're able to write? Take some time and think about which words for you.
You sound like words I teach my 8-year-old.
So, yeah, that's a good sign. I have a large vocabulary.
Yeah. Yeah, except in general, I scream them at him. But no.
Just sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you want to share some of the words that they chose?
For the ones that are how I feel when how I want to write, what emotions prompt me to write. I
Sure.
said awestruck, compassionate, gentle, curious, pensive, thoughtful. For the ones that are, yeah, not the ones I want to heal from, I suppose. Disappointed, uneasy, worried. And then I thought, or maybe grieved. Just a word that I hadn't noticed the first time, and then I glanced at it now.
Sure. We have a lot of words on that.
I want you to relate some of these to hiking. So.
Oh, yeah, it's tough to do well. I can pretty much write with any of these, but it really influences what I write and how I write it. I mean, if I'm in a awestruck mood, that's totally different type and style of writing than if I'm feeling grim, for example. But there are certain feelings that really prevent me from writing that just sort of shut me down. So things like worried, uneasy. What was the other word? I lost it. I should have underlined it. Disappointed, maybe. But definitely worried and urgent if I'm in that state. I'm not able to be creative. I just too focused on I got to solve this problem, or this problem is overwhelming. I need to have a freer mind to.
That's a good point. There's words that, like, some of these feelings that just stop us from writing. Or
Yeah.
It's almost like a block.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we really want to get past those blocks and then use the writing to get to some of these more positive sort of words. And you like word healing. There are many like benefits to writing that I'll talk about, and those are all some of our healing benefits. First, I'll tell a little bit like what led me to the memoir. Yes, so I was writing more fiction, and I've just always enjoyed writing fiction, and even like some, like I mentioned, like the speculative, kind of getting like pretty weird for a while, but that's kind of quite a switch over to memoir. So what kind of led me to a memoir first was a cancer diagnosis. So I got diagnosed at age 32 when I was 8 months pregnant with my youngest son, which I didn't even know that was something that could happen. Like I didn't even get cancer when you're pregnant, but apparently that's the thing. So, pretty weird. And then I guess what happened during that time, I went through cancer treatment like all of 2020 and then a little bit into 2021. So when I was first diagnosed, I didn't really know how far the cancer had spread. So there was kind of this weird 3-week time where I was induced in labor and did a whole bunch of scans at the hospital. And then we found out it was stage 3, so that it was something that we could sort of, it sounds like we can cure it, I guess, is what they're thinking nowadays, ideally. And I've been in remission for 3 years now, so it's looking pretty good. yeah, so just I think some of that time though, I was in it was in some of those negative emotions where I couldn't write anything because I didn't really know like what the future looked like. Especially like during the scans, I was like, well, we don't know if it's spread to any vital organs at this point, and so we don't know if I get like a pretty good prognosis or the really negative prognosis. But I ended up on the more positive side, so I did have to go through all the all the craziness of treatment, like with chemo and surgery and radiation and those things. And so I was kind of blocked for a while as far as writing, and I couldn't get to that creative spot where I feel like I can do all my fiction writing. So I did a couple other types of writing. First, I did some of the journal writing, like where you're just kind of making note of, I guess, your emotions, just like writing things down like that. I think that's a helpful place to start, like when you first start dealing with something that's traumatic or difficult. Just kind of get those emotions down. And also I kind of flipped to the other side too, where I would just write the facts. Like these are my symptoms, this is what my oncologist said, like kind of, more like as if I'm like charting maybe a patient in the medical realm, maybe. Something kind of like those lines. So I was kind of going back and forth there. And then I did get into poetry, which is totally the opposite of that sort of feeling. You really get into your emotions, and that was a really great place to be too. But then I found through it all, I think I learned a lot, because I guess anytime you go through something difficult, you learn a lot about yourself, and you grow a lot too, which is good, sometimes tricky, but also a good thing. And so I learned that I need to be I learned I need to be more like true to myself, and so one of those things had to do with continuing my writing and how important that was to me. And then I also learned that writing about myself could be healing and beneficial in different ways, and so that's kind of where I switched gears more toward the memoir. I also wanted to like make connections with others too. I learned that was something that I really craved during cancer treatment, is having like other peers that were in the same boat as me, because they would recommend like, oh, you can go to this cancer group, but then I would go there and then everyone's like 80, which I mean, nothing goes wrong with 80-year-olds, but they're just in a different stage of life. So I was like, yeah, I kind of need to find my peace. So, I went off and I was able to make some connections that way. And so part of that came from looking for places to share my writing with other people who were young adults who've been through cancer experiences. So that led me to some memoir writing. And then I did publish a piece, which I included like a little QR code for you guys, which I was thinking of reading. You guys are okay with that? It's pretty short. It's a memoir piece though, and it's published in Elephants and Tea, which is a magazine that's specific to young adults going through cancer treatment or cancer survivors. And so like they have the age range of 15 to 40 or 45 typically is what they consider for like EOA cancer patients. Sometimes it's 18 through 45, like they're not including maybe the younger teenagers. So that's about the age range that they have. But this was one of the first pieces that I wrote that was published last fall in the magazine, and I saw that was something I wanted to continue doing and like connecting with people in that way. So if you want to follow along, you can use the QR code. It'll take you to that published link at Elephants and Tea. Otherwise, I'll read my story. As I pulled into the parking lot in March 2020, I noticed how empty the clinic was. Only a few cars freckled the spaces, most in the employee section off to the right. At the door, I'm greeted by a woman wearing a surgical mask and holding a thermometer. I'm going to give you one of these, the woman says, handing me a homemade mask with white fabric and little purple flowers. I tuck the mask's thin bands around my ears and under the light brown chemo beanie. The straps are elastic and dig into the backs of my ears. I'm not yet used to wearing these masks yet, but I will soon adapt. A cancer patient in a pandemic is prepared for anything. Do you know where you're going? She asks. Cardiology. My chemotherapy drugs are notorious for causing heart issues. I'm due to receive the first of 3 echocardiograms that will determine how well my heart is functioning despite its monthly dose of toxins. The woman runs the thermometer over my forehead, telling me that everyone needs to check in downstairs. She points to another staff member, also masked, waiting behind a desk about 100 yards away. The hospital is almost empty. These two people are the only ones in sight. My last visit to the previously bustling lobby, only weeks ago, may as well have occurred in another lifetime. The pandemic has shut down restaurants, schools, and healthcare in rapid succession. 2 weeks ago, my chemo nurse was giving my arm a gentle squeeze before she prepared me for the IV stick. The TV behind her wore the distant whisper of some new disease halfway around the globe, but we didn't even blink. Life was good, except for the recent cancer diagnosis. As the woman finishes taking my temperature, I take in the empty lobby. Tall ceilings with high windows let midwinter light sweep across the floor in slanting patterns. In normal times, the coffee shop tucked behind the pharmacy creates long lines that tangle with those waiting to pick up prescriptions. Old people tell stories as they are wheeled about by people in scrubs. Staff, patients, and family members of all ages bustle and chat near the door. Where is everybody gone? Do I check in upstairs too? I finally ask. No, just down here. Nobody's up there, she says. Nobody? It sounds ominous. I check in and ride the quiet elevator to the 3rd floor. The lights are dim, and the waiting room is entirely empty. I glance to the check-in area, where I would normally be greeted by a couple of smiling faces wearing headsets. The 2 chairs sit empty. The computer is turned off, the elevator music absent. Hello? I call softly down the hallway, where the nurses usually appear. There is no answer. Beneath my mask, I bite my lip. I don't want to sit down. This whole situation seems unnerving. Does anyone actually know I'm here? The eerie silence seems to hum around me. Pacing, I debate whether or not to return to the 1st floor. I glance at my phone, then take a quick selfie to send to my mom, who's at her house watching the kids while my husband's at work. I'm wearing a mask and a beanie, effectively covering most of my face and my bald head. Behind me, you can see the empty chairs, the dim lighting. Nobody's here. I send it with a surprise face emoji. After I hit send, but before I can make my way toward the elevator, the technologist steps into the waiting room. Sarah, come back with me. As we walk down the silent hallway, she adds, we're the only ones up here. I was beginning to think I was the only person on the entire 3rd floor, I say to her with a little giggle. Maybe the only person in the world, I add in my head. These are unusual times, she says, leading me to the room. You can say that again. As we enter the room, she looks at me face on, or as face on as we can while wearing masks. How are you holding up? I heard you had a baby right around your diagnosis. It was tough enough before the world started ending these last couple weeks, I joke. Then I nod, more serious. It's been hard, but I'm doing my best. I'm fortunate to have a great support network beside me. She bobs her head. She might be smiling. That's important. She gives me instructions for changing into a gown and positioning myself in the hospital bed. I'm made to lean particularly close to the edge, so it feels like I'm nearly falling. She reaches out to me when I slip a bit too far forward, but then quickly pulls her arm back. Oh, sorry. We're not supposed to touch anymore. We don't yet know how dangerous the illness waging outside is. If it can spread from a simple handshake or the reassuring touch from caregiver to patient, it's safer not to risk it. It's okay. I catch myself on the table's edge. I'm still safe. The technologist places the wand against my chest, and the screen fills with images I don't understand. Cobalt blues fight with orange reds in different sized chambers. She rolls her wrists and makes a slight adjustment before clicking a few keys on the keyboard. The heart is a strange organ. It pumps blood throughout our bodies, essentially the powerhouse of our entire life. But we also place such metaphorical meaning on our hearts. The place of love, the place of our cares and our joys and passions. She walks me through the echo, complimenting me on my beautiful heart. I laugh, but she insists that she spends most of her time looking at hearts ravaged by years of smoking or other abuses. It's unusual that we look at a healthy heart. I'm grateful to hear that my heart looks healthy despite the chemo. She asks about my children, the one born just after my diagnosis and the 2 older ones, all of whom are keeping me a little too busy at home. I can only imagine, she laughs, 3 boys. They have a lot of energy, I say, my usual qualifier. She tells me about her own children and how she feels for parents at a time like this. Everything is uncertain. She makes me laugh too, with the way she describes the heart, this magnificent organ, with its beautiful chambers and surprising strength. Looking at the grainy images, I obviously cannot pick out the ventricle that holds my husband and children inside, or maybe the valve that stores my passion for writing, or desire to travel the world, or to see my students succeed. I see only a powerful fist-sized muscle, ignorant to any of my desires or intentions. It beats on because that is what it is meant to do. The next 2 years will not be easy. For my first 3 rounds of chemotherapy, my oncology team greeted me with a mixture of playful teasing and comforting smiles. I then spent 2 years and 65 hospital visits without seeing another healthcare worker smile, without their usual comforting touches. But this visit is the first of many, when I realized that unmasked, a mysterious threat, an illness doesn't have to separate us or push us apart. We are still ourselves and we are still strong, encouraged by the pumping of our beautiful hearts. I'll go on to share jokes and gifts and hopes with the rest of my hospital visits. I grew to identify the wrinkles around my oncology staff's eyes that mean they're smiling back at me, even if I can't see it. Despite stage 3 breast cancer, despite a global pandemic, despite all the worries of work and kids and treatment, my heart is holding its own. That's what it had been doing for 32 years before my diagnosis. That's what it did for a 1.5 years of treatment, and I have faith that it'll continue pumping on for much longer.
Very nice.
So that is the first piece that I had published, the first memoir piece that I ever had published. So that was kind of exciting and different. And I realized when I was on the Elephants and Tea site that I saw other stories that were kind of similar to my own experience and others that were very different. Even though we had like this one commonality, which just kind of made me want to start reading more stories that were similar to my own, or making connections with others who had my experience too. And I started to do a little research too to find out, okay, I'm feeling better as I write my memoir, as I write about these different pieces of my experience and I connect with others. But is this really like a thing? Like, can you actually heal from writing memoir? I found that you can. It's actually like scientifically proven. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I do have some information first, like just kind of 5 key benefits. Talk a little bit more about, and then if you flip to the back side, you'll see just some different research studies that have been done that show the benefits and properties of feeling that are connected to writing. So something that's actually been studied for years, and it's pretty cool. I've even seen this just improve all sorts of situations. So from things like job loss to like bereavement to relationship breakups, chronic illness, natural disasters, all sorts of things you can heal from through expressive writing, and not necessarily just memoir writing, but just any sort of writing where you're expressing your emotions and connecting with the experience. I think it's really beneficial. And on the first side, you can see those 5 main benefits of writing memoir that I found. First is that it's reflective, gives you time to like process your thoughts, and I kind of think of it as sort of like a puzzle piece. Like when you go through something difficult, it's like one piece of the puzzle, and it might not fit with like the rest of the pieces of who you consider yourself to be. So when you're reflecting back on it, you can see where does this actually fit in with who I am. So like cancer patient wasn't necessarily like a part of my identity that like fit in with myself, but then I realized like kind of something along the lines of advocate is something that I like to connect with. So that's something that I'm sort of working on now, and I have little bookmarks too that I'm like passing on to people, like different resources for young adults with cancer. So that's something that I did connect with, even though I wasn't really like a fan of being the patient going around. I was like, okay, I can take something from this and fill it into like who I actually feel that I am, because I like to be helping others, like that's a part of who I am. I've always been kind of like had that element of teacher even before I was a teacher, I think, and that goes along with mother too. And then meditative, I think of reflective as kind of looking back on something, but meditative, I feel like you're thinking of how does this help you now? Like it's more grounding to your actual present moment. So that's something else too, like from any sort of writing, and also transformative, because then if you looked back at something now that was difficult, you can transform that now into something positive or productive that you can work with, and make something more beneficial. It's out of perhaps something difficult or negative. It's also calming, actually reduces stress, and that's like scientifically proven. So that's on the back side. I think they talked a little bit about that it's reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression, and it improves your immune functioning too, which is kind of cool. It reduces physical stress. So there's a lot of new things, I guess, connected to the calming element. I think too, if you're handwriting, which you know is probably not as common now, but it sort of has a repetitive hand movement or like knitting or crocheting, so kind of that soothing motion. Typing, I guess, is repetitive, but I think people associate that with work more. So I don't know if that's calming really. Maybe not as great as the handwriting. But it also helps you just to like slow your thoughts too, and just kind of like slow your mind as you go, and even your breathing. And then it's also uniting. So if you're not sure about actually like, sharing your stories, if you feel like, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready to write about it or things like that, you can still use this to like read other experiences, and I think connect people in that way. It's been really beneficial. So going and finding things to read about that are similar. So I mentioned the Elephants in Tea. That was one resource, and there's also I read a copy of this magazine called Wildfire. It's also a cool one. They call it the magazine for the women too young for breast cancer, and so they publish this and actually have like a hard copy version, which is kind of cool. So subscribe to them, and they're pretty awesome. And I met the editor-in-chief, so I published a piece with them too, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, just like reading, I think about experiences that are similar to your own can be really healing. But then if you want to take that step and actually like share your writing with the world, I think that's like maybe even better, maybe even more healing. I don't necessarily have research to back up that piece, but I do think it is more healing in my experiences. So use that piece too. And then I won't necessarily read through all the statistics, but you can see all the cool studies that have been done. I'm not like a huge science geek, but I kind of get excited about research sometimes. Just finished like a research unit with my students, and they're like, "What? Why do you like research?" Like, I just do. Like, you're learning more, and if you're curious, you can find out so much information. So I kind of geeked out on them, and I think that was right. But this last piece is something I want us to try together with writing. So I have some writing prompts, and I found from teaching that it's good to not just have one prompt, but have a few, so people can pick and choose what they want to write about. You can try one, and then if you don't like it, you can always pick another. And see what you think. But they're all like a little bit different. If you just like take some time, maybe like 15 minutes or so, and just do a little bit of writing, and then after that, if you want to share something that you wrote, you can, or if you just want to share like about what it was like, a little bit of writing, be cool too.
It's paper.
I think we can check the time, but
Mhm.
you guys want to share anything that you wrote or about how you felt when you were writing?
I felt excited. Oh, I can put it.
This
is so fun.
Awesome. That's good.
You're looking productive over there. Wow.
Yes,
Look at
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's great.
They're really
awesome.
into it.
Cool.
I thought, at first I started with something, but then I thought, well, that's kind of a similar thing that I've written before. So, okay, what's another memory?
Yeah.
And I didn't end up doing a lot of sensory details. I think I would go back and put them in there. I can. Nearing the end of my time in China, I took a last trip, hotel to subway, Jiasha Shangbing to Shihu, which is the places, the subway stops. And then a bus around the hills west of the lake, where a few young people, the suntan skin that marked them as laborers in contrast to the pale university students. And they smiled more. Replacing bikes, the yellow rental bikes left everywhere into a small trailer. I walked on vaguely the direction of my map, through a couple of courtyards with new grass to a trailhead. A large mildewed map, all in Chinese, stood near the trail, or rather road, the dark humidity of the hillside and the trees I could not name. And the ever-present slight hesitation at my every step in China. I walked on as the road curved, and the old man walked slowly before me. The white cotton shirt buttoned up the dark pants, like all old Chinese men I had seen. He walked slightly bent, hands behind his back, unhurried, not sweating like me in my skirt and white top chosen for lack of showing sweat stains. As I passed, I said, "Ni hao." So few did. I always spoke quietly, so it could maybe hide my accent, but I could not hide my hair or eyes. "Ni hao ma," he said, and then his eyes widened. "Mei guo ren?" "Gui." I understood. And he smiled, delighted, and his smile shifted to almost thoughtful grin, a moment of realization that he suddenly knew what he wanted to say. I couldn't understand what he said next, but I could understand it. The first time I understood without thinking, and the first time someone wanted to have a real conversation with me. This old man, a small road to the UNESCO heritage site. Now I'm writing in English, but who is the Xi Jinping of the U.S.? "Oh," I said, startled. "Trump." I understood, but the flash of worry too at any political question in China. How can I be tactful when I know so little? But he smiled again and said, "Ah, yes, Trump. Xi Jinping and Trump." And then he gestured fighting. What'd you say? I laughed and said, "Bu hao," which means not good. "Mei guo ren, zhang guo ren." Sure, I didn't get that part. Sure. Friends, whatever. I don't remember. Should be friends. That's what that was like that moment when oh my gosh, I understand. And it's not just, I want that. How much is that?
It's so different in actual conversation.
Yeah.
That you can understand the words,
Oh,
and
yeah.
put it all together. And yet he understood some of the words. That was kind of cool too.
Yeah, he was so excited about that. What a conversation.
It's like, well, okay. All right.
A little bit of everything, I guess. There's some really good descriptions though, of like what you felt and what you wore, that kind of stuff is kind of cool. Otherwise it would just be like, I met a man.
Yeah, I think this is something I will continue writing. Put in the details about where.
It's a lot. You like write something down and then, go back, add more details. Maybe it changes completely, maybe just a little bit. Cool.
Pomeo before I forget.
Maybe it's celebrating. Is it okay, Robin?
I'm still at a stage where I'm probably writing a little differently. I don't have that kind of writing at this stage, but I was just writing a letter actually, and
That's cool.
I got a little bit emotional during that, so I sort of stopped and went to other things. My mother passed away at the end of 2020, so there's certain things about her relationship that they fit a letter that is pretty sad, but it's life. We won't read all of it. I'll show you a different day.
Can be a way to say what I didn't go with the letter idea, but I like it because it can be a way to say what you might want to have said.
Yep, that's pretty much what I wrote. Like I said, there's just certain things about it that I'd have to fine tune. Like some of your details would probably fit this better and probably maybe make it a little bit more so that it wasn't quite so, I guess, feeling words as I would call them. Perhaps add other details like, I said, well, thank you for being there. Well, where was she? Like give a few other descriptions. Was it at school or was it in college or events? That kind of thing. My mother and I had a pretty challenging relationship. So some of your descriptive words perhaps, and Sarah's descriptive words probably would be highlighted at the very end. But anyways, that would be it.
I think some of these pieces too, like the memoir things they can take you on like an emotional roller coaster. So you'll have there'll be like the highs and then there's also the lows and everywhere in between.
Well, the first prompt reminded me of the Palm of the Hand memoir, so I was like, trying to think through my list of like, okay, what events did I have listed?
Came back
Like what memories? So, but I don't think this one was on the list, but it was a hiking memory of fording a river in a plastic canoe.
Wow.
Didn't quite work, but yeah.
Was it like everyone's trying to stay dry?
Yes.
Okay.
That was our plan.
Okay.
They were supposed to be puncture resistant,
Oh.
but the shuffling through
Change
rocky
that.
rocky
Yeah.
water.
Oh, no.
We're like, we should take these back. They're not
Yeah,
puncture
right.
Yeah, there you go. You have the evidence right there.
resistant. This didn't work. We have wet boots. Yeah. That's kind of, I would need to flush it out.
Reminds me, I just opened our suitcase the other day from our trip to Niagara Falls, and we had these blue ponchos. You mentioned that, and I remember telling my son at the time, "Put this on so you stay dry." Which was totally a joke. And by the way, they're like crumpled in this ball. I'm not pretty sure they. Yeah, you can add that somewhere. The poncho that was supposed to be.
So, yeah, so when I was 4 at Christmas, I got this wonderful gift of a train set, and my dad put it together for me. And I had such fun putting it together with him that the next day I took the entire thing apart. And in the process of taking it apart, I broke most of the track. And my dad was so upset with me because he had spent all this time putting it together. So what I tried to do is capture in my piece the memory of that night of when we were putting it together, of what made it so exciting, what made it so fun to do. So, so I guess I did number 1 as well.
And like boys always have to take things apart. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it wasn't like taking it apart to see how it worked, to put it back together, but it was just like, it was fun putting it together.
Right.
So I want to put it together again and relive that experience, right? So, but my parents couldn't understand that.
Oh, that's how we broke a train or two in our
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
We were like presented with the pieces, and I'm like,
Right. Now have you used that?
Yeah.
Perhaps that's an analogy for other things.
That's right.
Here you go,
There
fix
you
it,
go.
mom.
Yeah.
Fix it, dad.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving it a try and doing a little bit of writing.
Mhm.
Hopefully, whatever you created will turn into something really epic. And
No, I was thinking about that. I don't write. I have not written about sad times or challenging times. Well, challenging and like kind of physical, challenging, like climbing a mountain or something like that. But I haven't written about emotionally challenging times.
Some of those can file off to you.
It seems to be what was on my list, so I remember carefully a lot of those stay with you.
Some of your travel experiences must have been very interesting.
Yeah, I was working in China I worked in 2012, all of 2012,
okay.
and then 2018 spring and 2019 spring.
This is 2019 spring.
Mhm.
I'm supposed to go in 2020. No, I'm supposed to go in
Sure,
2020.
yeah.
We're going again.
Haven't decided yet, but they did ask me if I want to come back to 2024. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
yeah, it was. If you do ever have the chance to go to China, I suggest you go to Hangzhou, which is near Shanghai and has a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a big city, and in the middle of the big city is a mountain, not mountain, like hills, natural area.
And like every time you go back, do you like pick up the Chinese where you left off, or do you have to like go
Yeah, it's
backwards a
awesome.
little bit?
Yeah, I mean, mine has always been very limited and
Oh,
mostly
okay.
transactional.
Sure.
Mhm.
I want one of those.
Oh,
How much
yeah,
does that
right,
cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just some of the basics to
Mhm.
get by. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Oh yeah, one of the students teaching an online class to students in China,
Cool.
and they were telling us, we were talking about body language. Oh yeah. So this is 6. So you count on your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But don't point at it. 8, 9, and 10. Or
Okay.
so anyway, cool.
Mhm.
To say
Yeah.
cool, like liu 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 is cool.
Smart.
So what is it? That's a really cool thing.
Oh,
We'll
sure.
teach our kids that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I feel like that.
Sarah and I have children that are real similar ages.
Mhm.
I have 2 boys and she has 3. So.
Mhm.
You can count on one hand in China.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's helpful.
Yeah, it would be.
That's too convenient. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's like all those little cultural differences that you don't
Yeah.
like know until you're there.
Yeah, I think that's on our bucket list. China, like as we, I guess, retirement age, though, to get to a certain point where vacations are like more rewarding, perhaps. Now they're just like, okay, where are we gonna go when?
Be different too if kids are older or
Yeah.
or maybe not a month through the trip.
All right. Well,
Oh, yeah.
thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Great.
coming.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I like these prompts.
Yeah.
And I use them with my students.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you teach?